American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much. 2016, year of the snake. It's time for a change in the White House, y'all. Bring it.
Hello, everybody.
Gotta need a real leader, want a real leader, then we need a real man. Build a wall, deal with all them terrorists. America needs a man that can.
Hello, Loretta. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Click the share button, folks, while you come in. Let folks know we are live. As you know, Facebook never shows me. Facebook never shows me. So I'm excited because in just a few minutes, we're going to be bringing on our good friend Jarrad, author of this brand new book, 2016, How Donald Trump Saved America. I'm excited to talk to Jarrad, especially considering everything that's going on. We are certainly in interesting times, my friends. So click the share button. Let everybody know you're here. Let everybody know. Welcome, Connecticut. Good to see you all, and thank you for tuning in. We will have a lot to talk about, and I'm excited to talk with Jarrad. Jarrad and I actually have a lot of similar interests. We were both certainly working towards encouraging Sarah Huckabee Sanders to run for governor of Arkansas. Very active patriot, and I'm excited to get a chance to talk to him about his book, which is what we're going to do now. Which is what we're going to do. Good stuff. Good stuff. We're starting to see some real momentum picking up with Reopen America, you guys. We're going to talk about that as well. Across the country, people are getting excited. People are getting fed up. People are speaking out. And we're going to give you a little bit of update of all of the folks we've been talking to. And certainly it's been wonderful to connect with some people and really find common ground in liberty. So we're certainly excited about that.
You like having the right to bear arms, protect your family? What about the ability to work a job?
We really would like our abilities to work our jobs back. Thank you very much, government. Yes, I know they do not like me on Twitter. Go all the way out and come back in. See if that helps you, babe. That's all right, Chris. My monkey in the room, you guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. You are watching the one and only Trump Talk US live in DC with Suzzanne Monk. I'm Suzzanne Monk. We're 8 minutes away from the Capitol building, which is just over there. We're about 15 minutes away from the White House, which is just over there. Our president has been giving yet another great press briefing today. If you do get a chance, check it out because he does some it's very entertaining. I'm just going to say it is so worth the view. Now I'm going to bring our special guest in. Let's bring Jarrad into the string. Jarrad Shrlton, how are you doing? Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Wonderful.
That is amazing. That song is wonderful.
I know. I love Laser Snake. Folks, make sure all of you can hear Jarrad. If you can't, we'll maybe popping back in and see, whatever technical difficulties. We're still getting used to using this as a tool like this, but it seems to work out pretty great. Jarrad, you sent me a copy of this wonderful book, 2016, How Donald Trump Saved America. And you sent me 2 copies. One of these is for Nancy Pelosi. One of these for Nancy Pelosi. So I wanted to take a minute. I just kind of wanted to start off and read what can I read the message?
Absolutely.
To Nancy Pelosi, because I thought this was very appropriate.
So go ahead and read it.
Yes. Dear Nancy Pelosi, thank you for being an ineffective leader. That's very true. Because your party, Democrats, are so radical and so weak, President Trump will win in 2020 and lay the path for a Republican being in the White House for the next 100 years. That should scare her. That is the principle. That is the principle of my book. Donald Trump saved America from the radical Democrats, and he will preserve your what is that word? He will reserve. My glasses are not good. He will ensure your party will not have the one thing it craves, the power. Power. That's awesome. And it's funny because people get a little bit frustrated, especially nowadays with all of this virus stuff, and everybody's trying to be bipartisan in the face of this pandemic. But in reality, we see the Democrats have been not bipartisan, even in this moment of American crises. Tell me a little bit about what you think about what the Democrats have been doing in the last few weeks, and then let's talk a little bit about where your book was inspired from.
Well, the Democrats do what they always do, and that's obstruct.
Yeah.
They do not want to compromise. They only want to talk about how much they love to compromise, but in reality, all they are is obstructionists. And so whatever Donald Trump is for, they are against.
Right.
It doesn't matter. If he come out and said, we want to cure cancer, they say, well, cancer is not that bad. We can live with cancer because Donald Trump likes it.
Right.
So it's really preposterous that they claim to want to work together when they are the obstructionists. That was, you had me on your show about 6 months ago or so.
Sure.
About my first book, The Intolerant Tolerant Party.
Right.
And that's why I wrote that book, because while Democrats want to claim to be tolerant, they're not. Whatever Democrats say they are, they're opposite.
They're the opposite. Yes, it is entirely true. Compassionate, they're the opposite. Intelligent, the opposite. This is the problem. This is the problem we have again and again. And we saw with the stimulus package, as we know, the American people are certainly suffering. A lot of people out of work, but we saw the Democrats just stall and pack it with pork. And again this week, they put a stop to extending the small business loan spending that we are doing, this emergency package that we're doing for small businesses. So it seems like every move the Democrats have made recently, and frankly going back, has been not to help the American people, but I don't even know how it helps the Democrats. Can you ever explain how any of these actions help them get elected? I don't ever understand that.
It's not meant for them to help them get elected. They want to get elected, but it's meant for them to help them raise money, donations.
Yes.
They want to play to the rich donors. Whatever the rich donors want, that's what they're going to go for. And they figure if they get enough money, they can flood these districts. George Soros can pump as much money in there and overwhelm a Republican who may not be financed as well, and they can just overwhelm them and outspend them enough to win. They tried that in 2016 with Hillary outspending Donald Trump 6-1.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump won because everybody knew who Hillary Clinton was, and that's what I talk about in my book.
Well, yeah, and you have a chapter here, the Forgotten Americans, and I think that's really who the Democrats. That's who won the election for Donald Trump, but it's certainly the Democrats who have repeatedly forgotten Americans, and those forgotten Americans, frankly, they're not just the flyover states that Hillary might consider in part of her basket of deplorables, but they're here in the urban environment, in the Black community, where Donald Trump went into cities and said to the Black community, what do you have to lose? The forgotten American is across the board. Tell me a little bit about what you meant when you said forgotten Americans and who you're talking about.
Well, as I said in my book, the forgotten Americans, they're in all 50 states. They're from all walks of life. They're all races. They're both male and female. They can be anybody. They are the forgotten American is the truck driver who works 12-hour days and goes on a 12-hour drive, so he leaves at 6 o'clock in the morning so he can get home and eat dinner with his family. The forgotten American is the shop owner who has watched for years, who barely makes a living while he watches for years while Congress makes sweetheart deals for companies like Amazon and Walmart who don't need the money. Right. That makes it more difficult for them to stay open. The forgotten American is the gas station clerk who watches the crime goes up and they fear for their lives because the people who are meant to protect them, the mayors in these liberal cities, care more about the criminals than they do the honest Americans. So they're easy on crime, so these people can go in there and rob these stores with no punishment.
Right. And we've seen that actually get worse in some of the bluer, deep Democrat cities in New York and California. We have seen bail reform, as they called it in New York, where they just stopped arresting people for anything other than I guess killing somebody. Similar thing happening in Chicago and out in California, where individuals can basically shoplift up to $1,000, and the government's the law enforcement is not authorized to do anything. What impact does that have on business when people are in that situation?
Yeah, so your city is run by idiots when they release criminals out in the street, but they will arrest you for not being 6 feet apart from somebody.
Right.
They will arrest you for not being 6 feet apart, put you in jail, but meanwhile they let criminals out because they don't want them to catch coronavirus. So your city is run by idiots when it's like that. And Washington, D.C., your home city, Los Angeles, New York, all run by idiots.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen Mayor Muriel has continued to roll out more and more idiocy as this process has unfolded. And it's almost as if there's a competition between these Democrat governors and mayors. And I'm going to include Larry Hogan out of Maryland in that group because he pretty much is right up there first with all of these Democrat policies. There seems to be a competition to how much they can oppose the president. Jarrad, how much do you think of the response that these Democrat states have had? How much of that do you think is really just to try to be contrary to the president or to oppose the president's statements?
Well, I think it's 100%. I think 100% of what they do is just to oppose Donald Trump. If Donald Trump come out tomorrow and says, we've seen this and things that they've said in the past. Yeah. When he circles back around and says what they said 2 months ago, all of a sudden it's bad. Just like calling it the Chinese virus. Well, the liberals, they started off calling it the Wuhan virus, whatever.
Sure.
Back in January. And then when Donald Trump says it, now it's racist. But
and at the same time, right now they're beating him up on in the press conferences today because the media, back when Donald Trump was saying we need to shut down travel to China, we need to protect the American people, the media was calling him racist. They were calling him xenophobic. How dare you shut down travel to China? You clearly just hate the Chinese people. And then you give it 2 weeks and the media is screaming at Donald Trump, why didn't you do enough? You didn't do enough early on. Well, he did more than the media even wanted him to, and he gets no credit for it anyway.
Absolutely. They will never give him credit for it. It's just like hydrochloroquine. I mean, they would rather Americans die than Donald Trump be right. So deep down inside, they're never going to openly say it, but deep down inside, they hope this don't work. They hope people don't get
Well,
cured from it.
and they don't have to say it, Jarrad. As you know, different states have different policies on whether or not hydrochloroquine is being prescribed or
Sure.
even is allowed to be prescribed. So some of these governors have become so petty that they would literally restrict a drug that has significant indication of being an effective treatment. They would restrict that from their citizens in the state merely because Donald Trump has advocated for it.
Absolutely. I mean, liberal politicians are as low as you can get right now. I mean, they are bottom feeders. They are scavengers.
Right.
They're a bunch of hyenas out scavenging for a carcass, and they're worthless. Really, I mean, I don't pay them a second look because they are irrelevant and they're very low IQ, and so I don't even pay them any attention. Like, I watch the press conferences just because I want to hear what Donald Trump has to say.
Sure. Right.
I haven't watched CNN in probably 5 years.
Right.
And I think the last time I watched CNN, I was in an airport and I really had no choice.
Right.
And that's the thing about CNN. They would be out of business if they wasn't propped up by Jeff Bezos. And if they was not in every airport, they would have no audience and they would go out of business. Yeah. But because they're in every airport, they got a little bit of audience, but it's very few.
Certainly.
Outside of that, they got about 30 fans that watch them.
I know and you're kind of held hostage, and that is the one benefit of this situation is that fewer people are being forced to watch CNN in airports. But I find it very interesting, and I can't help but notice this. Just as President Trump was getting closer and closer to making an effective trade deal with China, we see this Chinese virus situation. Now, many people have said, of course, China has been maybe dishonest. Certainly, some people have suggested that China has been involved with the World Health Organization in setting up the entire plan, the response plan, which, as we see, has negatively affected our economy and many other economies. Some have even suggested that this is a bioweapon by China. Do you think we are in a silent conflict with the nation of China right now?
Absolutely. I don't know 100% that China designed this biological weapon, but I would not put it past China.
Sure.
What I am 100% of is they could have stopped it when it first became an issue, but they did nothing.
Right.
They did nothing for either one of two reasons, probably a little bit of both. One, they knew it would get out of their country and it would float on into America and the rest of the world. And like you said, America has beat China ever since Donald Trump has been president.
That's right.
China has been losing where they have been winning.
Right.
They could not take another chance of Donald Trump winning the election. The economy was roaring. Things were looking good. So China knew if Donald Trump wins again, if the economy's strong, he's going to win again. So they wanted to do something to try to disrupt that. And so they, if nothing else, they allowed it to leave Wuhan.
Sure.
With the hope of doing that. Personally, I believe that they manufactured it with this exact intention. I can never prove that. There's theories about that. Right. Chinese scientists.
Well, the same with the fact that they have worked very hand in hand with the WHO in advising countries how to handle their the pandemic. And as you see, every country that has gone through this shutdown process has had economic devastation. And there are some, Sweden did not do that. They are doing better. Japan had only limited shutdown, sort of a limited process, and certainly not as extreme as any of the, us, France, Italy, many of the other countries. So what do it's interesting to see that when you come out and you suggest, China may have been involved. We certainly are concerned about China's lack of transparency at the minimum. China's lack of transparency from the beginning of the process that could have been much more allowed other countries to be much more effective, even in helping China to contain the virus, had they been more open about it. Here in this country, we see the shutdowns having a really devastating effect across our economy. And I find it very interesting that the same people who the Dianne Feinstein types, the Joe and Hunter Biden types, who have had these intimate relationships with the Chinese government, certainly almost corrupt relationships, one could say. They're the ones advocating for us in America to be shut down, when that, right, of course, benefits China more than anybody.
And that's part of it, is the elites, their close relationship with China, and how they don't want to do anything to make China look bad. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned Japan, and you mentioned these other countries that did not do as much, but their leaders actually care about their country.
Right.
Our leaders, outside of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, do not care about our country. Yeah. Democrats don't care about their country. Democrats care about power. Yeah. And if we get Donald Trump out, who cares if the economy suffers?
Right.
If the economy crashes and that puts us back in power, it was a success. That's how they see it. So, yeah, they're not going to say, well, let's work together to actually try to rebuild, and let's help these Americans who have lost jobs, who have suffered under this. Because in their mind, if all this is brought back good again, right, then Donald Trump is right back where he was, with right, high approval ratings, the economy doing well, and people going to the ballot box in November and saying, why would we turn our back on this booming economy? I like this extra money I got. I like these lower taxes I have. I like all these extra freedoms I have. Why would I want to go back to the Democratic Party who say, we need to raise your taxes, we need to cut your freedoms a little bit?
So what's the situation on the ground in Arkansas right now? Are you shut down? Are you partially shut down? What are you guys able to do in Arkansas, and how is your governor handling it?
Our governor is handling it okay. I mean, we are not mandated to do anything, but we can go do things. Most businesses are shut down. The gyms are shut down. Mm-hmm. Our churches are shut down. Well, the churches can operate, but most of them just shut down. Right. So we have actually more freedom than a lot of these places do. So I'm really thankful for that.
Sure.
But a lot of things are shut down, which I don't feel like it should be.
Right.
But whatever.
Now, President Trump talked about he's talking very strongly about making a decision about the shutdown status of the country, and he is saying, and it's kind of funny, I've been saying this all along. I've been saying, when Donald Trump comes and issues the statement, we want to reopen the country, these governors are going to push back, and you can already hear the president pushing on them, saying he, as the president, has the authority to reopen and to lift this emergency order. What do you think is going to happen across the country when Donald Trump says, let's go back to work?
I think that the governors of the Republican governors in the state will analyze it, and if the area is not hit as hard, I think that they will slowly open it up. But if you look at like states like California and New York, of course they were hit really hard, but other like Colorado and places that's run by Democratic governors, I think they're going to push back and try and say, we're not opening our economy till September or October, just because Trump said May.
So we could be in a situation where certain states are economically devastated while other states are actually turning their economies back on. I feel that certainly is a very dangerous place for some of those states to be in. I already know of friends who have left Illinois and have gone into Indiana because the shutdown orders are much less strict than Indiana. The opportunities are more available. Do you see people coming towards Arkansas? Do you feel that you would be a draw state in that situation if the Democrat states stay shut down and there's no jobs available there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. These governors, they can do it at their own peril, but people are not going to stay if they have the mobility. They're not going to stay in a state where their governor says, well, you can't go to work for a year. Right. And then these states say, our economy's open. We're ready to go. Everything's booming. Everything's safe. Come join us. And then all I ask is, if you come to Arkansas, don't bring your liberal politics with you.
Thank you.
Don't come from California and try to change Arkansas. If you want to leave California, high taxes, less freedom, I salute you for doing that. But don't come here and vote in the same people who's going to make Arkansas into California. That's what people leave Arkansas or leave California and go to Texas, turn around and vote for the same policies that bankrupt their country, bankrupt their state, I should say, and then are surprised when things don't go well.
Right.
You look at Austin.
Well, that leads us right into what I wanted to ask you about next, because you make a bold statement to Nancy Pelosi. You say that that President Trump, the behavior of the Democrats right now and the election of President Trump will have their party out of power, the Democrat Party out of power for 100 years. Now, I understand watching what they're doing. That's not that far-fetched. But how do you see that unfolding in this particular time when we see this crazy crisis situation? How does President Trump turn this whole situation into a big victory in 2020 and into a Republican victory in 2024?
Yeah, so let's go back to September of 2016. I made a statement on Facebook that if Hillary Clinton wins the White House, we would never see another Republican in the White House. Now, everybody knew the plan. Hillary Clinton, if she won, she would open up the southern border, brought in 30, 40, 50 million illegal immigrants, as many as she needed, welcome them all with a nice gift basket, compliments of the Democratic Party, and all with the intentions of flooding our streets with new voters, voting entirely for Democrats because of their gift basket that the Democrats gave them, and overwhelm the natural-born citizens here and create a new entire voting bloc for the Democratic Party. So I also said, I went on to say, if Donald Trump wins in 2016, we would never see another Democrat in the White House.
Right.
Now, that was a much bolder statement than the previous one. I got laughed at, I got scoffed at for this, and I was ridiculed for this. But my theory was Donald Trump was going to work to close the southern border.
Right.
He was going to stop. He was not going to sign off on giving everybody, just bringing in many illegal immigrants.
Right.
The African-American voting bloc, which has primarily in the past has been solely for the Democratic Party, is starting to wake up and is leaving.
Yeah.
So, and I write about this in my book. And so they were waking up and leaving, so the Democrats needed to replace them. That was where the Latino votes come in,
right?
The illegal aliens. So, and I knew Donald Trump, when he set out to do something, he was going to get it done. He was not going to go. He was not going to make these statements, get to Washington, and change like previous presidents have.
Right. Correct.
Donald Trump had one thing when he leaves office in 2024. He wants to be considered the greatest president the United States ever had.
Right.
He could not be considered the greatest president of the United States if he did not follow through with his promises. Right. So he was going to do these, come hell or high water. He was going to do these. And so I knew once he did this that people were going to start turning away from the Democratic Party because they've seen how ineffective they have been in the past. And I cover this in Chapter 7, the Rust Belt states.
The Rust Belt.
Like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania had not voted for a Republican since 1988. And so in a presidential election. So, Donald Trump won that state, which is a miracle all by itself.
Well, yeah, we see the same thing in Michigan with the bringing back of the auto industry, something that has long been needed in Michigan.
And that's what I talk about. These people are not going to turn their back on Donald Trump.
Right. Coal country the same way. Coal country. Donald Trump was critical in bringing back the coal industry.
If you take Michigan, for example, they have voted for a Democrat since 1984. That was the last time they voted for a Republican, 1984. Yeah. So for 25, 30 years, they've been voting for the same party. And they watch their industry leave. They watch their money disappear. They watch their wealth go away. They watch their citizens leave. Yeah. And then Donald Trump comes in and starts bringing that back. Yeah. What are they going to do in November? They're not going to say, well, I like this 4 years that I've had this prosperity. but it's time to go back to the Democratic Party. Hell no. They're going to say, I'm voting for Donald Trump again. After 4 more years of the same, hopefully we don't have Nancy Pelosi in there to obstruct us for the next 4 years. And then, by the time he gets through rebuilding America, the America will not look like it did 8 years ago. And these people will never vote for Democrats again, the people who got them back in these bad spots.
Well, and that's what you see, we talked even earlier about the Democrat states pushing back against the president, wanting to reopen, wanting to get people back to work. And we see that 100% in the case of Michigan, in the case of Governor Whitmer, who she's a little tyrant. She is constantly cracking back. In fact, she's personally reached out to a Patriot friend of mine, part of our Reopen America team, who was bringing meals to elderly shut-ins. And the governor's office requested that she stop doing that. So, these governors in these Democrat states, they are going to try to keep the state shut down because they think that affecting the economy is going to make people blame that on Trump. But Jarrad, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to blame it on this Democrat governor, don't you?
The Americans, they're smarter than that. They're going to say, for 3 years, everything was going well until this Chinese coronavirus came here. And if it did not show up, our economy would be booming then. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to look and say, Donald Trump is wanting to get rid of it. Y'all seem like y'all like it.
Right.
So why the hell would I want to vote for y'all when y'all are kind of rooting for America to fail and Donald Trump rooting for us to win? Why would I want to vote for y'all? Yeah.
Well, I know that the Michigan Patriots are getting very upset. They are putting together an event on the 15th. Everybody listening, we'll be sharing this on the page, on my page, on the Reopen America page. They are putting together an event at noon on April 15th at the Michigan Capitol called Operation Gridlock. So we'll keep an eye out for that. There are starting to be protests and people just stepping up and pushing back all across the country. Jarrad, what do you think going forward? Do you think that we're going to see protests nationwide? Do you think people in Arkansas are going to push back? Where do you feel people's mood is at in your part of the country?
If Donald Trump comes out and says, the doctors say it's okay, the cases have gone down, I'm leaving it up to these governors and these states that it's not been hit very hard. I'm going to leave it up to y'all to make the decision. If our governor, Asa Hutchinson, doesn't decide to open up the economy, I think there will be some resistance and possibly marches on the Capitol. But I think that Asa Hutchinson would decide to go ahead and open up the economy once things are getting better. Mm-hmm. But you're right. In these states that, if these liberal governors say, well, I don't care what the president says, I'm going to keep our states shut down, I think you will see people marching and people protesting and saying our freedoms are more important than your agenda.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen in many states, actually, our Second Amendment rights have been dramatically hindered or limited. In Maryland, they have shut down, the ability to use the range. They've controlled ammo sales, different things across the board. How are your gun rights being dealt with in Arkansas? Have they been protected through this crisis? And what is your governor doing on that important issue?
Yeah, so our gun rights are, nothing's been done on that, aspect of it. We're a deep red state, and of course, Ace is not up for re-election, but, I don't think it would be political suicide for him to come out and say something about guns. We need to limit guns or whatever. It would be committing political suicide. His next 2 years would be really hell in his office if that was the case. And he wants to leave Arkansas on a good term.
Now, have they done any prisoner releases out in Arkansas? I know across the country, they've released prisoners from incarceration to protect them from the coronavirus. Are they doing that in Arkansas as well?
I have not heard of any.
Well, then this is what you're saying about Democrat governors versus the Republican governors. I'm telling you what's happening in the Democrat states. They're letting out prisoners. They're cutting your gun rights. So criminals are on the streets, but you can't defend yourself. You're telling us about your deep red state where your gun rights are being protected. Your prisoners are still in prison, and you are still able to go about, with reasonable safety. And you feel confident that as soon as the country is able, your governor will want to reopen the economy. That's a huge difference from Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago or Mayor Bowser here in DC or Gavin Newsom over in California. It's a tremendous difference.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would suggest anybody who loves freedom and loves paying less in taxes, leave your blue state.
Yeah.
Go to it, find a red state that you want to go to and go there and settle, but leave your politics. If you've said I'm going to vote for Democrats in the past, leave those in Illinois or leave those in California or wherever, New York.
Well, and for those folks who, I have a lot of folks, particularly Virginia, there's a lot of red voters in Virginia, but of course that Northern Virginia, that blue pocket can really impact the state. And so I say, getting involved in your state politics, getting involved in the election process, becoming a delegate, becoming a poll watcher, registering voters. These are all things that are so important, but even more so in these what so-called purple states, where you have these little pockets of blue that are really, dragging down, if you will, an otherwise very red state.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would add to that, these states that are purple or even blue states, Republicans, they've got to find a good candidate. They can't find a moderate candidate or a liberal candidate or whatever just to try to appease the masses. You got to give some people, voters, a contrast. Give people a reason why to vote for you.
Right. Yeah, a real alternative, because what we see is in these Democrat states and in these blue cities, we see the same policies leading to the same results over and over and over. So as the president said, what do you have to lose? And I think the answer would be crime, oppression, tyranny, and an impoverished city.
Absolutely. I really feel terrible for these, residents of Los Angeles and, these big cities where the mayors do not really care about them.
Right.
All they care about is the voting, is the donors. I really feel sorry for them. I would never want to live there.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of our nation. You don't have to, or we have a beautiful 50-state experiment. And of course, the district, you can always experiment over here as well. Jarrad, how does everybody go about getting your book, 2016, How Donald Trump Saved America? How can they pick up this? Where can they get this and get a copy for themselves?
You can go to lulu.com, LULU.com. That's my publisher, and you can pick up a copy right there. It will be available on Amazon in about a month. They said that it takes a little bit of time. It was just last Friday, the 3rd, was the published date, and they said it usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get reviewed and be for sale on Amazon. But in the meantime, you can go to lulu.com, LULU.com.
Wonderful. And folks, I would recommend it. Jarrad makes some excellent points, and look, it has charts. Even, you guys, it's charts. It's informative and entertaining, and certainly, I think you're going to read through this and you're going to feel sort of a revisiting of that whole process we've been through, electing the president, and I think in a good way, because almost in this election in 2020 and with this whole crisis, we're fighting for the president. I think have harder than we ever have even in the past.
Yeah. So this book will definitely take you down memory lane to back to 2016 election. And if your viewers, if they despise Hillary Clinton, they will love this book because I lambast her all throughout my book.
Well, and Jarrad, I'm going to leave you on this. I'm going to ask you a quick prediction. We've seen Bernie Sanders drop out of the race or suspend his campaign, and he is now, quote unquote, endorsed Joe Biden. What do you think is going to happen with these crazy Democrat race? Are they literally going to go with Joe Biden? And will he remember his own name if he is on the debate stage?
Listen, they are all in for Joe Biden because they didn't want to damage one of their rising stars, quote unquote, rising stars like Mayor Pete or Kamala Harris or one of their rising stars. And they knew it was going to be tough sledding beating Donald Trump anyway, with no matter who they ran.
Yeah.
And so they didn't want to, tarnish a Mayor Pete or, one of these, new rising stars. So they want to throw the old Joe Biden out there, let him get beat around, lose in grand fashion.
Right.
And then in 2024, maybe run one of these other candidates out there to try to beat whoever runs. I hope Ted Cruz gets a nomination in 2024.
Sure. Well, and we're gonna be talking about that. That's as you know, I've been talking about it. We've all been talking about it in my circles. Is really to start parsing out just let's brainstorm all kinds of candidates. There's so many different options in 2024, but we need to start thinking about that sooner than later, and certainly coalesce because the Democrats are going to be sneaky.
I want to tell your viewers that 20% of my sales goes to St. Jude's Children's Hospital.
Oh, fantastic.
I want to cure cancer before my lifetime, and I think that we can do it. It just takes funds, and 20% of all my sales goes to St. Jude's Hospital.
That's fantastic. So you can enjoy, you can learn, you can reflect. I'm sure there's a good laugh in here as well, and you can help out children who are in need. And I love St. Jude's as an organization. They do some really great work. So Jarrad, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to all my viewers and sharing your book with us. As soon as they open up this Capitol building, as you know, I will be over there within less than 6 feet of Nancy Pelosi, making sure she gets a copy of this book.
You got to send me a picture.
I will do. Everyone, Jarrad Shrlton, author of 2016, How Donald Trump Saved America. Awesome. Thank you for coming on, Jarrad. Thank you for coming on. So, folks, I want to close out. We've got a few more minutes here. I want to update you a little bit on what Reopen America has been doing. We've been growing leaps and bounds. I'm very excited to see the success of this organization. And certainly there are others who are getting on this reopen idea. We are working with all sorts of organizations. I'm working with the Michiganders who are tired of the shutdowns. We're working with Oregon groups. We're working with other reopen groups. We're working with pretty much everyone sharing the same calls to action. We're going to talk about the most important call to action you guys can do right now today. So easy, but so important in just a second. But one of the most interesting conversations and collaborations that I was able to do was with a group out of Canada. You might have seen their posters. It's hashtag no more lockdowns. And they're actually advocating for globally, not nationwide, worldwide protests in different cities, different sort of peaceful gatherings and protests against these lockdowns. I talked with the woman Suzzanne today. She's wonderful out of Vancouver, and so we're certainly seeing some very interesting collaborations. I feel like they might be a little bit more left of center than we are here in the Trump world, but when it comes down to it, loving your freedom knows no party. And that's one thing that me and Susan agreed on when we talked today. Loving freedom knows no party. So we're going to continue to collaborate. I know we are starting to see events, protests here in the United States popping up across the country. Ohio did one today. Very proud of the folks in Ohio. We're going to see them going across the country. We will be having an event here. We will be having a protest here at the White House in Washington, D.C. on May 1st, and I believe on May 2nd. I think we're going to actually hold a 2-day. We're going to do an overnight vigil. Yeah, we're going to make a big deal here May 1st and May 2nd in Washington, D.C. So if you are in the driving area, come on in. And certainly we will be praying for our folks in Michigan that the Operation Gridlock event that they're doing out there goes well. Now, I want to issue everybody a really important call to action. As I said, it is critical that we email the president this week. If you've been watching the press conferences, President Trump has been pushing back against the shutdowns. He's been pushing back against the media's pressure. You can see it in the media's questions. The media's pressure to keep the country shut down. Every time the president suggests even a little bit that he might reopen the country, you see them pressure him harder and harder. Will you listen to the doctors? Will you keep the country shut down? What if the doctors say we can't be open forever? They are pressuring the president viciously to keep the country shut down. We need to let the president know that's unacceptable. We need to let the president know that we are not going to tolerate we're not able to tolerate this ongoing shutdown, and we are ready for him to give the signal to get us back to work. He needs to know that when he says, let's go back to work, that we, the people, are ready for that move. We're not afraid. We are amped and ready to go, and we have every confidence that we're going to do that in a safe fashion. He is under an immense amount of pressure to stay closed and, in fact, to increase shutdowns further. We need to let him know that we have his back. We don't want to be shut down. We need to counter that message. We need to counter the message of the shutdown, and we need to protect the president by showing our support for his reopening plan. So I need everyone to email the president today. Email the president. It's very simple. You can just go to whitehouse.gov, click contact. It will have a nice email link right there. Email the president. Let the president know, President Trump, we are ready to go back to work. As soon as you give the go-ahead, we Americans are ready. We have your back, and we are ready to get back to work. We are asking you to reopen America. So important that we do that. So important that we here in the Patriot Movement let President Trump know. And then we are going to be going forward over the next several days. We're going to be reaching out to governors and asking them, will you abide by the president's recommendation to reopen? Will you abide by the president's recommendation to reopen? We're going to be asking each and every one of these governors if that is the case, if they will in fact abide by those rules, by that guidance, and we're going to find which ones aren't. And those are the ones we're certainly going to hit hard with constant emails, constant phone calls, rallies, and protests to make sure that these governors that want to stay shut down understand that we, the people, they work for us. We don't work for them. We are not their subjects. They cannot just go around telling us what to do, what's essential to buy, what's not essential to buy, what we're allowed to purchase, where we're allowed to go, whether we're allowed, why we're allowed to fish. Did you know there are states where sport fishing is illegal, but if you're fishing for food, it is legal. So if you keep the fish and you eat it, it's okay. But if you catch the fish and you let it go, not okay. Are there officers literally watching you fish to see what you do? This is what we're suggesting when we're passing this kind of law. We saw, I believe, in Louisiana, one of the other states, and officers literally at the church, where they were holding an outside church service in their vehicles. No one's even in contact with one another. Everyone is separate in their own vehicles. They're broadcasting the sermon over the radio, and the pastor is there. He's on the steps. They've got the little setup so he can preach out to the people. Utterly no contact. The police officers literally were there recording people's license plate, dozens of police officers there, while crime and other activities go on in the city. We're here making sure that people don't park in the church parking lot. We're going to keep pushing back against this, you guys, and there is so much momentum. The people are fed up. The people are tired. We are tired. And at Reopen America, we've been pushing very hard for this. So we're going to keep pushing back on it. And we are certainly seeing some real results. And we are certainly seeing some real momentum. So I want to thank everybody for sharing the page. You can share it you can go to our Facebook page, reopenamerica.info. You can check out so many great articles. We have a lot of great articles there. We do a daily call to action, sometimes 2 different calls to action, sometimes 3 different calls to action. But we are certainly an active group. I know some folks have, you get on the internet and they complain that everybody just comes and complains. But our group is very specific in that our mission is to engage these governors, these mayors who are doing these shutdowns and push back. So we have been calling, we have been emailing, we've been writing letters. And I want to just say to my folks that are on the Reopen America's page, the Reopen America supporters page, you guys have been doing a great job. I'm just so proud of you. When you put out a call to action, email the White House. Dozens of people today did in fact do that and let me know. And it just feels really good to see everybody working together to accomplish our goal. Our goal is to get America back to work. Our goal is to make America great again, to restore that booming economy that Jarrad talked about, that we all have talked about, that the president created through his policies, through his America First policies, through his business savvy principles, through his trade agreements that certainly take a position of protecting American interests and not just greasing the palms of these politicians and in the benefit of other countries. As we've seen in so many years in the past, our politicians, they are happy to benefit themselves but favor other countries in their decisions because it gives them a little money in their campaign, or it gives them a little clout or power. I don't know why you would do that. Why would you work against your own country? I don't know. But we've seen it for years. We've seen it for decades. And certainly with President Trump, we see the opposite happening. We see someone who is genuinely concerned about the well-being of this nation, genuinely concerned about the well-being of his citizens. And certainly you see in his press conferences in the last few days, particularly, more and more support and talking about the American people and our need to get us back to work. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where these things are going. I know it's been an interesting journey, and it will continue to be an interesting journey, but I'm happy to see people getting frustrated. Congratulations, Ohio. Great, great, great job. Really appreciate what you're doing. We're going to be doing our own rally here in DC, like I said, May 1st and 2nd. So stay tuned for those details. But until then, you guys, keep on fighting for our president. Keep sharing real information. Keep emailing the president. Keep emailing and contacting your governor, your mayor. Let them know you do not support these shutdowns and you want them to stand with the president when he says reopen. Make sure they are going to comply. If not, let us know, because we have a whole army of emailers and phone callers that are happy to put pressure on each one of these governors and mayors that do not want to reopen and do not want to help their economy flourish and help their citizens get back to work. So important. You guys, that is our show for today. I want to thank Jarrad Shrlton for coming on the show. And I want to, of course, let you all know, we will be back again on Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, we will see you online. I'm going to be making a series of quick videos, how to call your mayor, how to call your governor. So keep an eye out for all of that. Thank you all for all the support you're giving me. Thanks for tuning in. And let's do a quick prayer before we go. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you once again for an opportunity to speak with people here on this platform. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for Jarrad and his book and his wise words and his his sharing that with others, Heavenly Father, that you would have impressed upon him the urge to share his wisdom and insight. May his book sales do very well, that many people will get a chance to read his book and share in his thoughts and ideas, and be motivated by those words to continue to fight for this president and for our American values. I want you, of course, to watch over our president, continue to protect him and his family, continue to give him wise decisions, Lord, and to continue to silence those voices that would speak to the president without certainty, without your wisdom, Heavenly Father, that would mislead the president and mislead the American people. Silence those voices, strengthen the wisdom and the right decisions, Heavenly Father. Guide our president, put your hand on his shoulder, and surround him with angels. Protect each and every one of us in this country and continue to bless us, Heavenly Father. We ask that you would heal our nation and bring us back to work and bring us back to the prosperity, so that we may heal and protect others as you have always told us to do, that we may be a shining light for the world. I ask these things in the name of your Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, this is Suzzanne Monk. Jumping out.